My brother is faster than me. He has always been faster than me. On the mountain, in conversation, in every room he's ever walked into. Garrett moves through the world like it was built for him specifically, like the friction that slows the rest of us down was removed from his path at birth. He's 3 years older. He's 4 inches taller. He got the jaw and the shoulders and the ease. I got the asthma and the student loans and the particular talent for being the second person anyone looks at when the two of us enter together. I'm telling you about Garrett because in about 12 minutes of this story, you're going to need to understand why I couldn't leave him. Not wouldn't. Couldn't. The way a river can't leave its bank. The way a shadow can't leave the thing that casts it. I have been following my brother my entire life, and the thing at the Whitefall Lodge knew that about me before I did. We're here now. Both of us. It's Thursday. The third night. I'm writing this in the upstairs bathroom of room 6 with the shower running because the noise is the only thing that keeps me focused, and because the rules say you can't be heard deliberating. I don't fully understand that one yet, but I've stopped needing to understand the rules before I follow them. Garrett is downstairs in the lounge. He's been in the lounge for 6 hours. He is talking to everyone and everyone is talking to him, and I need to get him out before tomorrow morning because tomorrow morning is the Avalanche, and the Avalanche has nothing to do with snow, and my brother, my fast, tall, magnetic golden brother is exactly what it wants. The trip was Garrett's idea. Everything is Garrett's idea. He called me in late February, a Tuesday night, while I was sitting in my apartment in Fort Collins eating cereal over the sink like the 27-year-old catastrophe I am. I work at a property management company. I answer phones. I schedule maintenance requests. I make $19.50 an hour, and I have a communications degree from CSU that has communicated nothing to anyone except the federal loan servicer who sends me a letter every month reminding me that I owe $43,000 and that deferment is a privilege, not a right. Garrett is a sales rep for a medical device company. He makes 6 figures. He leases an Audi. He has a girlfriend named Tessa who does something with venture capital that I don't understand, and a condo in Denver with exposed brick and a kitchen island. He is not a bad person. I want to be clear about that. He is not cruel. He is not dismissive. He has never once made me feel small on purpose. He makes me feel small the way the sun makes a candle feel small just by being in the room, just by existing, with no malice and no awareness. Cass, he said, I found this place, off-grid, old ski lodge up past Silverton. They don't even have a website. I found it on some Reddit thread about hidden Colorado spots. It's called the Whitefall Lodge. Week-long package, Thursday to Thursday. Backcountry skiing, no crowds, home-cooked meals. They've got like 12 rooms. It's supposed to be incredible. I said I couldn't afford it. He said he was paying. I said I had work. He said I answered phones and they could find another phone answerer for a week. I said I didn't want to ski. He said, Cass, when was the last time you left Fort Collins? I didn't answer because the answer was November, and the destination was a Target in Loveland. 1 week, he said, you and me, like when we were kids. Remember Monarch? Remember that trip with Dad? I remembered. I was 9, Garrett was 12. Our dad took us to Monarch Mountain for a weekend and Garrett skied blacks on the first day and I fell on a green run and cried and Dad carried me back to the lodge and made me hot chocolate and said, you don't have to be fast, Cassie. You just have to be here. Dad died in 2021, pancreatic. Fast, the only thing about our family that was ever faster than Garrett. Okay, I said. Yeah, okay. He made a sound on the phone that was so genuinely happy it hurt. Garrett loves me. That's the part of this I can't get around. He loves me the way older brothers love younger sisters protectively, carelessly, with the absolute confidence that his love is enough to compensate for every imbalance between us. It isn't, but he believes it is, and his belief is so total and so warm that I've spent my entire life unable to tell him otherwise. We drove up on a Thursday in early March. Garrett's Audi, my passenger seat. Highway 550 south from Montrose, which is, if you've never driven it, one of the most beautiful and terrifying roads in the continental United States. The $1 Million Highway, no guardrails in places, cliff drops that go straight down into the Uncompahgre Gorge, the kind of road where you grip the door handle and stare at the white line and think about every choice that led you to this particular edge. Past Silverton, Garrett turned off onto a Forest Service road that wasn't marked. He had directions on his phone, handwritten apparently, transcribed from the Reddit thread, because GPS didn't work up here. We climbed for 40 minutes on packed snow. The road narrowed. The trees thickened Engelmann spruce, dense and dark, the kind of forest that eats light. At 11,200 feet, the road ended at a wide clearing, and there it was, the Whitefall Lodge. I want to describe it carefully because the building matters. It's not what you're picturing. It's not a rustic cabin with antler chandeliers. It's not a boutique ski chalet with Instagram lighting. It's a 3-story timber-framed structure built into the side of a mountain, old and solid and deeply strange. The bottom floor is stone, actual stone, not facade, rough cut and mortared like a fortification. The upper 2 floors are dark timber with narrow windows. The roof is steep, almost alpine, shingled in slate that was green once and is now the color of old bruises. There's a wraparound porch on the 2nd floor with wooden railings that have been carved, not decoratively, functionally, with symbols cut into the rail at regular intervals. I thought they were decorative until I noticed they all faced outward, away from the building, toward the tree line. Garrett parked. We got out. The air was thin and sharp and smelled like pine resin and cold rock. The silence was the kind of silence you don't get below 10,000 feet total, pressurized, the silence of altitude, of air too thin to carry ambient sound. The front door was open, not unlocked. Open. The inner door stood wide, and through it I could see a foyer with a stone floor and a wooden staircase and a fire burning in a fireplace that was big enough to stand in. A woman was standing in the foyer. She was already looking at us. "Garrett and Cassandra," she said, not a question. "That's us," Garrett said, and he smiled, and the woman smiled back, and I watched the exchange and felt the particular sting of being included in a greeting that was directed at my brother. Her name was Aylin. She was maybe 50, tall, Scandinavian-looking, pale hair pulled back, strong face, the kind of fitness you see in people who live at altitude and work with their bodies. She wore a gray wool sweater and jeans and boots, and she moved through the lodge the way a person moves through a building they have lived in for so long that their body has memorized the floorboards. She showed us the lodge. Ground floor, dining hall, kitchen, lounge with the fireplace, a small library, and the gear room where ski equipment was stored. 2nd floor, guest rooms, 6 on each side of a central hallway, numbered 1 through 12. 3rd floor, locked. Staff quarters, she said. Off limits, she said. We didn't need to go up there, she said. Room 6 was ours. 2 twin beds, a dresser, a window facing the mountain. The window had curtains heavy, woven, the kind of weight that suggests insulation rather than decoration. On the back of the door was a laminated card. I'm going to reproduce the card exactly. Not from memory, I have it in front of me. I took it off the door after the 2nd night because I needed to carry it. Whitefall Lodge Guest Guidelines. Welcome. We are honored to have you. Please read the following carefully. These rules exist for the safety and comfort of all guests and are non-negotiable. 1. Dinner is served at 7 p.m. All guests must attend. No meals will be sent to rooms. 2. After dinner, guests are welcome to use the lounge, library, and gear room until 11 p.m. At 11 p.m., retire to your room. Do not leave your room between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. 3. If you hear movement in the hallway after 11 p.m., do not open your door. Do not acknowledge the movement. It is not staff. 4. The third floor is restricted. Do not attempt to access the stairwell beyond the second floor landing. 5. On the morning of your fourth day, Elin will announce an avalanche warning. This warning is not weather-related. When the warning is announced, proceed directly to the dining hall. Do not go to the windows. Do not go outside. Remain in the dining hall until the all clear is given. 6. During an avalanche warning, you may notice that the number of people in the dining hall does not match the number of guests currently registered. Do not count. Do not attempt to identify who is extra or who is missing, except the number is correct. 7. If someone sits beside you during the avalanche who you do not recognize, respond to them normally. Answer their questions. Laugh at their jokes. They are a guest. Treat them as such. 8. After the all clear, return to your room. Some guests may feel that they have made a close connection with someone during the avalanche. This is expected. Do not pursue this connection. Do not seek them out. They are no longer in the lodge. 9. If you feel at any point during your stay that you are the most interesting person in the room, leave the room immediately. Go to your room. Close the door. Wait 1 hour. 10. Do not discuss these rules with other guests. If another guest references the rules, end the conversation. If they persist, find Elin. I read the card twice. I looked at Garrett. He was unpacking his bag, hanging his ski jacket in the small closet, humming something I couldn't identify. He hadn't read the card. He hadn't even looked at the door. Garrett. Yeah. Read this. He walked over. He read it. He took maybe 20 seconds. Then he laughed. Love it, he said. That's commitment to the bit. This place is like an escape room with beds. You think it's a joke? Cass, it's a vibe, like those themed hotels in Japan. They're selling an experience. Creepy mountain lodge with mysterious rules. That's the whole brand. That's probably why they don't have a website. It's all word of mouth. It's all part of the mystique. Rule 5 says the avalanche isn't about weather. Yeah, because it's a bit. They probably have a whole theatrical thing they do on day 4. Lights, sound effects, the whole deal. It's part of the package. Rule 9 says, Cass. He put his hand on my shoulder. He was smiling. Not dismissively warmly, the way you smile at a child who's worried about a thunderstorm. It's a ski lodge. We're going to ski and eat good food and sleep at 11,000 feet, and you're going to relax for the first time in like 3 years, okay? Don't let a laminated card ruin it. I wanted to argue. I didn't argue. I never argue with Garrett. That's the shape of us he decides. I follow. And the gap between his confidence and my doubt is so wide that I'd need equipment I don't own to cross it. We went downstairs for dinner. The dining hall seated maybe 30. There were 9 guests, including us. I'm going to describe them because it matters not all of them, but the ones that matter. Across from us, a married couple from Albuquerque, Neil and Diana. Mid-40s. Neil was quiet and watchful. Diana talked enough for both of them. They'd been here before. They said it casually. Last year we had room 3, and when I asked them what the avalanche warning was about, Diana smiled and said, "Oh, you'll see. It's something." And then turned to Neil and asked him to pass the bread, and the conversation was over with such precision that I knew it had been ended rather than finished. At the far table, a man alone, late 50s, big, bearded, eating with his head down. He didn't introduce himself to anyone. He didn't speak. He ate and he left, and Elin watched him go with an expression I couldn't read. And in the lounge after dinner, a woman named Harper, maybe 30, from Breckenridge. She was sitting by the fire when Garrett and I came in, and she looked up when we entered, and her eyes went to Garrett, and they stayed there. Everyone's eyes go to Garrett. This is not a complaint. This is gravity. You don't complain about gravity. You just live under it. But Harper's gaze was different. Not attracted assessing. The way you look at a piece of furniture to see if it'll fit through a doorway. Measuring him. And when Garrett sat down across from her and started talking, because Garrett always starts talking, because Garrett fills silence the way water fills a glass, naturally, completely. Without effort, Harper listened with an intensity that made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't name. They talked for 2 hours. I sat beside Garrett and contributed nothing. Harper asked him questions about his work, his childhood, his favorite mountain, his happiest memory. Not small talk, biographical questions, the kind of questions you ask someone you're building a profile of. Garrett answered everything because Garrett answers everything because Garrett has never met a question he didn't want to charm. At 10:45, I said, "We should go up." Garrett looked at me. "It's not 11 yet. The card says 11. The card says the lounge is open until 11. I want to go." He looked at Harper. Harper looked at me. And this is when I first felt it, the thing Rule 9 is about. Because for 1 second, 1 flicker, Harper's attention was on me, and I was the most interesting person in the room. Not because of anything I'd done, because I was pulling Garrett away, and that made me an obstacle. And obstacles are interesting the way locked doors are interesting, not for what they are, but for what they're blocking. The feeling lasted about 2 seconds. Then Harper smiled and said, "Your sister's right. Early morning tomorrow. Good night, Garrett." And she touched his arm, just his forearm, just briefly, and she went upstairs. We went to our room. Garrett fell asleep in 4 minutes. I lay in my twin bed and listened to the lodge settle, and at 11:20 p.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not walking, pacing, back and forth past our door, with a rhythm that was almost musical. The footsteps were bare feet on hardwood, a soft, flat sound, no heel strike, like someone walking on the balls of their feet. They passed our door 7 times in 12 minutes. On the 8th pass, they stopped, directly outside. I could hear breathing, not labored, not heavy, just present. Someone standing outside room 6, breathing, waiting. Garrett snored softly in the other bed. The breathing stopped. The footsteps resumed, moving away. I heard them reach the end of the hall, and then I heard the 3rd floor stairwell door open and close. Rule 3. It is not staff. I did not sleep. Friday, day 2. Garrett skied. I tried. The backcountry terrain off the ridge behind the lodge was steep and technical, and Garrett moved through it like water, and I spent most of the morning on a lower slope, making careful turns in heavy powder, stopping every 100 yards to catch my breath because 11,000 feet is a different atmosphere, and my lungs have never been my strong suit. I saw Neil on the slope around noon. He was alone. Diana had stayed in, he said. He skied beside me for a run, and at the bottom, while we were clicking out of our bindings, he said, "You read the card?" "Yeah. Your brother didn't. He thinks it's theater." Neil looked up at the lodge. From below, it looked even stranger. The stone base emerging from the snow like a natural formation, the timber upper floors dark against the white mountain, the carved railing on the porch facing outward like teeth. "It's not theater," Neil said. "Diana and I came last year because we heard it was special. We thought the same thing your brother thinks. Themed experience, immersive hospitality. We thought we were clever." "What happened?" "The avalanche happened. Thursday morning, day 4. He paused. He was choosing his words with the care of someone who had practiced this conversation. "There were 8 guests last year. When we sat down in the dining hall for the avalanche warning, there were 11. 3 extra. Don't count. That's what the rule says, and it's right. Counting is how you notice, and noticing is how they pick you. Who picks you? Neil clicked back into his skis. He looked at me. He was not frightened. He was managed. He had the particular careful stillness of someone who has found a protocol for fear and is executing it precisely. The avalanche isn't snow, he said. It's people. They come down the mountain, they fill the lodge, they look like guests and they talk like guests, and they are so interesting and so warm and so exactly what you want that you don't notice when they start taking someone with them when they leave. He pushed off. He skied down the next pitch without looking back. I stood alone on the mountain, and the wind hit me, and I was so cold and so afraid that I couldn't move for almost a minute, just stood there, skis pointed downhill, looking at the lodge below, and the tree line above and the gray March sky pressing down on all of it. I went inside. I found Garrett in the lounge. He was with Harper. They were on the couch by the fire, not touching, separated by about a foot, but angled toward each other with the particular geometry of two people who are only aware of each other. Garrett was talking. Harper was listening. Her focus on him was total, absorptive. The kind of attention that makes the person receiving it feel like the most real thing in the world. I sat down across from them. Neither of them looked up for almost 10 seconds. "Hey, Cass," Garrett said. "How was the slope?" "Good. Can I talk to you?" "Sure. What's up?" "Alone." He looked at Harper. She smiled and stood and said, "I'll grab some tea. Anyone want anything?" She left. Garrett watched her go. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I talked to Neil, the guy from Albuquerque." "Yeah, quiet dude. What about him?" "He said the avalanche warning is real. He said people come into the lodge during the avalanche, extra people, and they take someone when they leave." Garrett looked at me, not annoyed, patient. The particular patient expression he uses when I'm anxious, when I'm overthinking, when I'm doing the thing I've always done, which is to be afraid of the thing he's enjoying. "Cass, I'm serious." "I know you're serious. You're always serious. That's why I brought you here so you could stop being serious for 1 week. Garrett, the rules say don't count the people. The rules say if someone sits next to you who you don't recognize, just act normal. Those are not hospitality rules. Those are survival rules. They're atmosphere rules. Neil is playing along. He's a returning guest. He knows the bit, and he's messing with the new girl. He wasn't messing with me. You don't know that. I know what fear looks like. You know what acting looks like. You took 3 semesters of theater. I took 1 semester and I dropped it. The point is, I'm scared and you're not listening." He went quiet. Garrett goes quiet when I push, not silent quiet. It's a withdrawal, a slight dimming, as if my fear is a cloud passing over him and he's waiting for it to move. He's not mean about it. He just doesn't understand fear the way I do. Fear is my native language. Garrett has never been fluent. "Okay," he said. "What do you want to do?" "I want to leave. I paid for a week." "I know. And the road down is sketchy and it's supposed to snow tonight and we'd be driving the $1 million highway in the dark." "I know. And there's nothing wrong. Nothing has actually happened except a laminated card and a guy on a ski slope telling you a scary story." He was right. That's the thing. Standing in that lounge with the fire going and the late afternoon light coming through the narrow windows and the smell of dinner starting in the kitchen, standing in that perfectly normal, perfectly beautiful place. He was right. Nothing had happened. The footsteps in the hallway could be explained. Neil's story could be explained. The card on the door could be explained. Everything could be explained except the way Harper looked at my brother. "Just be careful with her," I said. "With who?" "Harper." He smiled. Not the charming smile. The real one. The one that means he thinks I'm being his little sister. Cass, she's a guest. We're having a conversation. I'm allowed to talk to people. I know. Just be careful. He stood. He squeezed my shoulder. He went to find Harper. I sat by the fire and I thought about Rule 9. If you feel, at any point during your stay, that you are the most interesting person in the room, leave the room immediately. Garrett was always the most interesting person in the room, in every context. That was his defining characteristic, the quality that made him Garrett, the gravity that pulled everything toward him. What if that wasn't a flaw in the context of the lodge? What if it was a qualification? Saturday night, dinner, day 3, all 9 guests at the table. Elin served roast chicken and root vegetables and poured wine without asking. The bearded man, I'd learned his name was Thomas, ate in silence as always. Neil and Diana sat together. Diana talked. Neil watched the room. Harper sat next to Garrett. After dinner, the lounge, more wine. Garrett told a story about a sales trip to Dubai, and everyone laughed, and Harper leaned toward him, and I watched and I felt something that I recognized but hadn't felt since childhood. The particular vertigo of watching my brother be loved by everyone while I sit in the adjacent chair and wonder what version of myself would be necessary to generate even a fraction of that warmth. At 9 p.m., something changed. I was sitting in the corner with a book I wasn't reading. Garrett was in the center of the lounge, mid-story, gesturing with his wine glass. Harper was on his right. Neil and Diana were across from him. The other guests, a couple from Oregon, a woman from Durango, were arranged around him in the particular unconscious orbit that people fall into around Garrett. And then everyone laughed at something he said, and in the pause after the laugh, in the beat of silence where the room resets, I felt it. I was the most interesting person in the room. It hit like a change in air pressure. Not a thought, a sensation. Every eye in the room was on me, not looking at me on me, the way a searchlight is on a target. I could feel the weight of their attention, all 9 of them, including Garrett, including Harper, including Tomas, who had never looked at anyone since we arrived. It lasted 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then it broke. Everyone looked away. Garrett resumed his story. Harper laughed. The room went back to normal. But in those 3 seconds, I understood Rule 9. The feeling of being the most interesting person in the room was not flattering. It was not warm. It was the feeling of being measured, sized, evaluated for a fit I didn't understand. Something in the room, not someone, something, a quality in the air itself. A pressure had turned its attention on me and taken my dimensions and found them insufficient and moved on. And moved back to Garrett. I stood up. I said, "I'm going to bed." Nobody responded. I walked upstairs. I locked the door. I sat on my bed and shook. At 11 p.m., Garrett had not come up. At 11:15, I opened the door and looked down the hallway. Empty. The lights were dim. Ellen turned them down at 11, some kind of automated system. At 11:20, I heard laughter from downstairs. Garrett's laugh and Harper's voice, low and warm, saying something I couldn't make out. Rule 2. At 11 p.m., retire to your room. Do not leave your room between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. My brother was breaking Rule 2. My brother was downstairs in the lounge after curfew, talking to a woman who looked at him the way a sculptor looks at marble. I almost went down. I almost broke the rule myself to get him, to drag him upstairs the way I used to drag him away from the edge of things when we were kids, and I was the careful one and he was the one who leaned over railings and drove too fast and assumed that the world would catch him because the world always had. Then I heard the footsteps, the barefoot pacing, coming down the hallway toward me. I closed the door. I locked it. I got in bed. The footsteps stopped outside room 6. The breathing started that same soft, patient, present breathing, the sound of something standing on the other side of an inch of wood and waiting. Downstairs, Garrett laughed. In the hallway, the breathing quickened, just slightly, as if whatever was out there had heard the laugh too. Then it moved on, toward the stairs, not up, toward the 3rd floor, down, toward the lounge. I lay in bed and listened, and I could not hear what happened next because the lodge is well built and the stone absorbs sound, and all I could tell you is that Garrett's laughter continued for about 10 more minutes, and then it stopped. And then there was silence, and then, at midnight, the door opened and Garrett came in and got into his bed without turning on the light. "Garrett? Go to sleep, Cass. Are you okay?" "I'm great. Harper and I talked. She's amazing. Good night." He fell asleep. I did not. I lay awake until 4 a.m., listening for the footsteps, which did not return. At some point, I must have slept because I woke to daylight and Garrett's bed was empty and his ski jacket was gone, and through the window I could see him on the porch below, standing with Harper, both of them looking up at the mountain. They were holding hands. Sunday, day 4, the Avalanche. Aylin made the announcement at 8 a.m. She stood in the dining hall where all 9 of us were eating breakfast, and she said calmly and clearly, "There is an avalanche warning in effect. All guests will remain in the dining hall until the all clear is given. This is not weather-related. Please stay seated. Please stay calm." Garrett looked at me. For the first time since we'd arrived, he looked unsure. Not scared. Garrett doesn't do scared. But the particular expression of a confident person encountering a scenario that doesn't respond to confidence. "See," I whispered. "Not weather-related." She said it. He didn't respond. Harper, seated on his other side, put her hand on his arm. "It's fine," she said. "I've done this before." I looked at her. "You've been here before?" "A few times." "You didn't mention that." She smiled at me. It was the first time she'd directed a full smile at me, and I want to describe it because it was wrong in a way I can only articulate now, with 3 days of distance. The smile had too many stages. A real smile is one motion the face shifts from neutral to warm in a single fluid movement. Harper's smile arrived in sequence. The mouth first, then the cheeks, then the eyes, each component activating separately, like a machine that had learned the human smile by watching component tutorials and was executing each step from a manual. "I didn't think it was relevant," she said. Aylin closed the dining hall doors. She pulled the curtains over the windows, heavy curtains, the same woven weight as the ones in our room. The room went dim. The only light was the overhead fixture, a wrought iron chandelier with candle-shaped bulbs that cast a yellow, uneven glow. "Do not go to the windows," Aylin said. "Do not open the doors. When new guests enter, welcome them. I will give the all clear when it is safe." She left. She walked through the kitchen door and closed it, and I heard a lock engage on the other side. She had locked us in. For about 5 minutes, nothing happened. Neil and Diana sat very still. The couple from Oregon whispered to each other. Tomas stared at the table. Garrett fidgeted. Harper held his arm. Then the front door opened. I heard it from the dining hall, the main entrance, the heavy wooden door opening and closing. Footsteps on the stone floor of the foyer. Then the dining hall doors opened from outside, which was impossible, because Aylin had closed them, and there was no and she'd closed them, and a man walked in. He was maybe 35. He was wearing ski clothes. He was handsome and smiling, and he looked around the room with the casual ease of someone arriving late to a party. "Morning," he said. He sat down at the empty chair at the end of our table. Nobody spoke. Another set of footsteps in the foyer. The doors opened again. A woman, 40s, laughing as if someone had just told her a joke in the hallway. She sat down across from the first man. More footsteps, more doors, more people. They came in ones and twos over the course of about 20 minutes, and they sat at the tables and they talked to each other and they talked to us. A woman sat beside me and asked my name, and I said Cassandra, and she said beautiful name and asked me where I was from, and I told her, and she told me about her daughter who lived in Fort Collins too, on Mulberry Street near the university. And do I know the coffee shop on the corner with the blue awning? I do. I go there every Saturday. She knew the coffee shop. She knew the street. She knew my city. She was so specific and so warm and so real that I almost for just a moment forgot that she had walked into a locked dining hall from an empty foyer during an avalanche warning that had nothing to do with snow. Rule 6. Do not count. I counted. I couldn't help it. I am not Garrett. I don't charm. I don't flow. I tally. I notice. I keep track. It's the only skill I have that Garrett doesn't. 9 guests. That's what we started with. There were 23 people in the dining hall, 14 new, 14 people who had walked out of the mountain on a Sunday morning in March and entered the lodge and sat down and were so warm, so engaging, so magnetically present that every original guest at every table was leaning toward them like plants toward a window. And Garrett, God, Garrett. He was the center of 3 of them. A man on his left, a woman across from him, and Harper on his right. And the 3 of them were turned toward him like satellites, and Garrett was shining. He was more Garrett than I had ever seen him, funnier, louder, more animated, more alive. He was telling a story, and all 3 of them were laughing, and Garrett was feeding on their attention the way he always feeds on attention, with that unconscious hunger that isn't greed, it's architecture. It's how he's built. The woman beside me touched my hand. Your brother's wonderful, she said. I pulled my hand away. He really is, she said. He's the most interesting person in this room. Rule 9. Rule 9 says if you feel like the most interesting person in the room, leave. But what about when someone else is the most interesting person? What does the rule mean then? The rule protects against being selected, but what protects the person who's already been chosen? I stood up. I walked to Garrett. I leaned down and said, we need to leave the dining hall. The rules say stay. Garrett, look around. I'm looking. It's the Avalanche thing. It's incredible. Elin really committed to this. These people are amazing. The guy next to me, Marcus, he's in medical devices too. He knows my regional manager. He's not real. Garrett looked at me. Not patient this time. Annoyed. The expression he gets when I'm ruining something. Cass, sit down. They came out of nowhere. There are 14 extra people in this room. They came through the door. From where? There's 4 feet of snow outside and nobody drove up the road. Maybe they're from the 3rd floor. Maybe they're staff. Maybe they walked down the mountain the way Neil said they would, and they're here to take someone and they want you. The room went quiet. Not gradually, all at once. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. 23 faces looking at me and Garrett, and in the silence, I realized what I'd done. Rule 10. Do not discuss these rules with other guests. I had broken Rule 10, in front of everyone, in front of the 14. The woman who'd been sitting beside me stood up. She was still smiling, the sequined smile, mouth, then cheeks, then eyes. Cassandra, she said, why don't you sit back down? No. Your brother is happy. We're all happy. Why would you want to interrupt that? Because it's not real. It's as real as anything. It's realer than what's waiting for you in Fort Collins. Your apartment, Your phone, your $19.50 an hour. Is that real? Is that a life? Your brother is here and he is loved and he is seen, and you want to take that away from him because you're afraid. She knew my hourly wage. She knew my city. She knew the shape of my life with a precision that meant either she had researched me or she had read me, consumed my biography from the air itself, and was now using it the way a lockpick uses the shape of a key. "Garrett," I said, "get up." He didn't move. He was looking at Marcus, who was looking at him with an expression of such genuine admiration and warmth that I could see why Garrett couldn't leave. Marcus was giving him the thing Garrett has always needed, not just attention, but recognition. The specific, detailed, knowledgeable recognition of someone who knows exactly what you are and thinks it's magnificent. "He doesn't want to leave," Harper said, still holding Garrett's arm. "He chose to be here. You chose too. You can go back to your room if you want, but you can't choose for him." This is the sentence that broke something in me, because Harper was right. I have never been able to choose for Garrett. I have never been able to pull him from a room or a decision or a direction. He is faster than me. He has always been faster than me. And the thing at the Whitefall Lodge was faster than both of us. And it wanted him. And it was offering him the one thing I could never offer: a room where he was the center and would stay the center and would never have to leave. I looked at my brother. He was smiling. The real smile. The one I love. I went upstairs. In the room, I locked the door. I sat on the bed. I read the rules again. Rule 8. After the all clear, return to your room. Some guests may feel that they have made a close connection with someone during the avalanche. This is expected. Do not pursue this connection. Do not seek them out. They are no longer in the lodge. After the all clear, they leave. The extras. The 14. They leave and they take the connections they've made and they go back up the mountain or into the air or wherever they came from. But the rule says some guests may feel they've made a close connection. It says do not pursue. It doesn't say no one goes with them. It says don't pursue, which means pursuit is possible, which means the connection is real enough to follow, which means someone at some point has followed, which means someone has been taken, which means the avalanche isn't just a visitation, it's a harvest. They come down, they find the most interesting person in the room, and they offer them something so perfectly calibrated to their deepest need that the person walks out with them voluntarily. And Garrett, my brother, who has never met a room he couldn't light up, who has never met attention he couldn't absorb, who has never in his life been told that his brightness was dangerous. Garrett was sitting in the dining hall being offered the full beam of 14 people's adoration, and he was not going to leave, and the all clear was going to sound, and they were going to walk out, and he was going to walk out with them. I couldn't stop him by pulling him away. I had tried. He was faster, so I had to change what the avalanche wanted. Rule 9 again. If you feel, at any point during your stay, that you are the most interesting person in the room, leave the room immediately. The rule is a warning. It tells you to run when the spotlight hits you. But what if I didn't run? What if I walked into the dining hall and made myself the most interesting person in the room? More interesting than Garrett, and let the avalanche turn its attention from him to me? I am not interesting. I have never been interesting. I am the second person anyone looks at, the quiet one, the careful one, the one who tallies and tracks and sits in corners with books she isn't reading. I do not fill rooms. I do not tell stories. I do not shine. But I know my brother. I know every story he's ever told. I know every joke, every rhythm, every beat of his performance, because I have been his audience for 27 years. And I know something else, something the avalanche doesn't know, because the avalanche only sees brightness, and not the shadow it casts. I know that Garrett's light runs on one fuel source, someone watching. Take away the audience and Garrett dims. Not because he's weak, because performance requires a witness, and Garrett's entire identity is a performance, and the most constant witness he has ever had is me. If I became more interesting than Garrett, the avalanche would turn toward me, and if it turned toward me, Garrett would lose the spotlight. And if Garrett lost the spotlight, he would do what he has always done when nobody's watching. He would get uncomfortable and get quiet and want to leave. I didn't need to pull my brother out of the room. I needed to make the room stop wanting him. I went downstairs. I opened the dining hall doors. 23 faces turned toward me. Garrett was still at the table, still surrounded, still shining. But I could see it now, up close, in a way I hadn't before. The 14 extras weren't just admiring him. They were feeding, not metaphorically. The air around the table where Garrett sat was different, thinner, colder. The warmth that Garrett naturally generated, the charisma, the ease, the gravity was being drawn out of him and into them, and in exchange they were giving him attention, which was not nourishment, it was anesthesia. They were numbing him with his own drug while they ate him alive. He looked thinner than he had at breakfast, not physically, dimensionally, like a photograph slowly losing contrast. I walked to the center of the room. I stood in the open space between the tables, and I did something I have never done in my life. I started talking, not to anyone, to the room. I stood in the center of the dining hall of the Whitefall Lodge, and I spoke. And what I said, I am not a storyteller. I do not have Garrett's gift. I stumble and second guess, and my voice shakes. What I said was this. I talked about being the second one, the one who follows. I talked about growing up behind someone so bright that every room recalibrated when he entered, and the recalibration always left me standing in the space where the light didn't reach. I talked about my father, who died fast, who carried me off a green run at Monarch Mountain when I was 9 and made me hot chocolate and said, "You don't have to be fast, Cassie. You just have to be here." I talked about what it means to be here, actually here, in a room, in a body, in a life. When the world keeps telling you that being here isn't enough because there's always someone brighter and faster and more magnetic standing next to you. I talked about Fort Collins, my apartment, my cereal over the sink, my $19.50 an hour. I talked about the loan payments and the maintenance requests and the particular quality of loneliness that comes from knowing you're adequate, not failing, not thriving, just adequate, just here, just the person who shows up and does the thing and goes home. I was not interesting. I was honest. And the room, I felt it happen, the room turned. Not all at once, in shifts. One of the 14 looked at me, then another. Then the woman who'd known my hourly wage stood up from her chair and walked toward me, and her face had changed. Not the sequenced smile now, but something raw, something hungry, something that recognized in my honesty a frequency it hadn't expected to find. "Cassandra," she said. "That's me. You're not what we thought. I know. You're more. I'm not. I'm exactly what you see. I'm the one who stays. I'm the one who's always here. That's all I've ever been." The room was cold now, specifically cold. The air around me was dropping the way the air around Garrett's table had dropped, and I could feel it. The drawing out, the extraction. They were turning their attention on me, and their attention was a mouth, and it was opening. And behind me, quietly, in the space where the spotlight had been a moment ago, I heard Garrett say, "Cass." He sounded like himself, not the charming, shining, room-filling Garrett. The real one. The one who calls me on Tuesday nights. The one who paid for this trip because he wanted to see his sister. The one who stood in a hospital room in 2021 and held my hand while our father died and didn't say a single word because for once in his life he had nothing to say, and he was there anyway. "Cass, What's happening? Get up, I said. Go to the room. Lock the door. I'm not leaving you. Garrett, for once in your life, let me be the one who stays. The 14 were around me now. Not physically, I mean their attention, their focus, the full weight of whatever they were. I was the most interesting person in the room, and I was not running. And Rule 9 said to run, and I was breaking Rule 9 deliberately, and the consequence was bearing down on me like an avalanche. Not snow, mass. The accumulated weight of something that comes down from above and buries everything in its path. The avalanche was attention. The avalanche was want. The avalanche was the monstrous, consuming, insatiable desire of something that lives on the mountain and comes down when the conditions are right and finds the brightest thing in the room and drinks it until the brightness is gone. And I was not bright. I was honest. And honesty, it turns out, burns differently than charisma, not hotter, but longer. And the thing was confused by the difference, and its confusion was the closest thing to mercy I was going to get. Aylin came through the kitchen door. She looked at the room. She looked at me, standing in the center of 14 attentions, and she looked at Garrett, standing free and confused and diminished behind me. All clear, Aylin said. The 14 stopped. They turned toward the dining hall doors, which were open now I hadn't seen them open. Through the doors, the foyer, through the foyer, the front door also open. Through the front door, the mountain white and vast and ancient and patient. They left, not all at once, in ones and twos, the way they'd arrived. Each one paused as they passed me. Not to threaten, not to warn, to look, to take one last measurement. The woman who'd known my wage stopped beside me. She leaned close. She whispered, "Next year, they'll come for you." She walked out the front door and up the mountain, and the snow swallowed her footprints as she went. The dining hall was empty except for the original 9. Garrett was standing behind his chair, both hands on the back of it, looking at me with an expression I had never seen on his face. Not gratitude, not relief, something worse. Recognition. He was seeing me. For the first time in his life, he was actually seeing me not as the shadow, not as the careful one, not as the sister who follows, but as the person who had walked into a room full of something monstrous and pulled its gaze away from him by being nothing more than what she was. "Cass," he said. "Don't," I said, because if he said what his face was saying, I would break, and I couldn't break yet, because the woman's whisper was still in my ear, and I needed to understand what it meant. Aylin was closing the curtains, pulling them back, actually opening them. Sunlight came through the windows. Normal, Colorado, 11,000-foot sunlight. "You broke Rule 9, Ellen said to me. "I know. You're supposed to leave the room. I know. Do you know why? Because being the most interesting person in the room is how they select you." Aylin shook her head. "Being the most interesting person in the room is how they see you. The selection happens later. It happens the next time they come. They've seen you now, Cassandra. They took your measurement. And they will come back for you." "When?" "The next avalanche. The next time the conditions are right. Could be a year. Could be a month. The mountain decides. And if I'm not here." Aylin looked at me with an expression that was not unkind, but was absolutely without comfort. "They don't need you to be here. They've seen your shape. They know what you taste like. They'll find you wherever you are, in a dining hall, in a meeting, in a coffee shop on Mulberry Street. Anywhere you're in a room with other people, they can come. The avalanche isn't just here. This lodge is just where we know to watch for it." I looked at Garrett. He was pale. Thinner than before, not physically, still dimensionally, as if some of the contrast had been drained out of him and not fully returned. He was looking at me and his eyes were wet, and I realized that he understood finally what I had done. I had taken his place, not by being brighter, by being visible, by standing in the center of a room for the first time in my life and saying, "Here I am, look at me instead." And the thing on the mountain had looked, and it had liked what it saw, and now it knew my name. We're leaving tomorrow, Thursday, the full week. Garrett wanted to leave Sunday right after the avalanche, right then, get in the car, drive the $1 million highway in daylight, and never come back. But Elin said the rules require the full week. She said leaving early violates the terms, and the terms are not with her. The terms are with the mountain. So we're here. 4 more days. The lounge is quiet now. The other guests are quiet. Neil and Diana left their room for meals and nothing else. Tomas has not spoken. The couple from Oregon checked the car 3 times. Harper is gone. Not left. Gone. Her room 9, is empty. Her clothes, her bag, her ski equipment, all of it is gone. The room is clean, the bed is made, the laminated card is on the back of the door. There is no evidence she was ever here. Elin does not mention her. When I asked, Elin said, "Harper is no longer a guest. I asked if Harper was one of them, one of the 14, one of the things that come down during the avalanche." Elin said, "Harper was a guest. Then Harper became interesting. Now Harper is no longer a guest." That's all she would say. Garrett hasn't mentioned Harper either. He sits in our room and he doesn't talk and he doesn't ski and he doesn't charm. And the thing I always thought I wanted my brother, quiet, still in the room with me, not performing, is the most frightening thing I have ever witnessed. Because I took the avalanche's attention off him, yes, but I didn't put it back. And what's left of Garrett without the spotlight is a man sitting on a twin bed staring at the wall, and I don't know if that's the real Garrett, or if the real Garrett was the bright one and the bright one is what the avalanche ate and what's sitting in room 6 is the remainder. I don't know which version of my brother I saved. It's Wednesday night. Tomorrow we leave. I'm in the bathroom with the shower running, writing this on my phone, because the rules say you can't be heard deliberating. I think that means they listen. I think the lodge transmits. I think every word spoken in these rooms goes up through the timber and the stone and into the mountain the way a confession goes into the walls of a church. I can hear Garrett breathing in the next room. He's awake. He's been awake every night since Sunday, lying in the dark, breathing, not speaking. Downstairs, someone is in the lounge. I can hear a voice, low, warm, engaging, telling a story. A good story from the rhythm. The kind of story that makes you lean in. There are no other guests in the lounge. Everyone is in their rooms. It's after 11. Someone is downstairs being the most interesting person in an empty room, and the audience is the building itself, and the building is passing the performance up through its bones and into the mountain where something vast and patient is listening and deciding whether it's heard enough, whether the conditions are right, whether it's time to come down again. The voice sounds like me. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean the voice in the lounge, the one telling the story, the one filling the empty room with honesty so bright it registers as heat. It sounds like my voice, my cadence, my rhythm, the particular way I spoke on Sunday when I stood in the center of the dining hall and offered myself up. They're practicing. They're learning my frequency the way they learned Garrett's. And the next time the avalanche comes, they won't need to find the most interesting person in the room, because they'll be able to create one. They'll walk in wearing my voice and my honesty and my particular flavor of careful, observed, second-child visibility, and they'll sit down beside someone in a coffee shop in Fort Collins and say, "Beautiful name." And the person will lean toward them because the thing inside them will be so warm and so real and so exactly what the person needs that they won't notice when the room gets cold. I gave them a new tool. I gave them me. That's the rule I broke. Not Rule 9. Not Rule 10. The rule underneath all the rules. The one that isn't written on any laminated card because it's too obvious to write. Don't feed the mountain something it hasn't tasted before. Garrett was bright. Brightness they knew. Brightness they'd harvested before. Season after season, guest after guest. Every charismatic soul who walked into the lodge and filled the room and made the Avalanche salivate. That's what the lodge is for a trap for the bright. A showcase, a display case where the mountain can window shop for the most luminous person in the room and take them home. But honesty, visibility without performance, the willingness to stand in the center and be seen not because you're dazzling but because you're there, they hadn't had that before. I could feel it in the way they paused, in the way the woman whispered next year, not a threat, a promise, a craving. I taught the mountain a new appetite. And now my voice is in the lounge practicing, and tomorrow I'm going to drive down the $1 million highway with my diminished brother in the passenger seat, and I'm going to go back to Fort Collins and sit in my apartment and eat cereal over the sink and wait for the day when I'm in a room. Any room, a meeting, a coffee shop, a classroom, a dinner, and I feel the air get thin and the attention turn, and someone beside me says, "You're more than what you think." And I'll know that the avalanche followed me home. The shower is still running. The voice downstairs is still talking. Garrett is still breathing. I'm going to turn off the water. I'm going to go to bed. Tomorrow, I'll drive us out of here because Garrett can't drive right now. Garrett can't do much of anything right now. Whatever they drained from him on Sunday, it hasn't come back. He's still Garrett. He's just Garrett at lower volume. Garrett with the brightness turned down to a level that looks, from the outside, like a normal person, and from the inside, from where I sit, from where I've always sat, looks like a light going out. I saved him, I think. I don't know what I saved him into. And I don't know what I made myself into by standing where he stood and letting the mountain see me. But I'm here. I've always been here. That's the only thing I've ever been good at. Dad said, "You don't have to be fast, Cassie. You just have to be here." He didn't know that being here was the dangerous part.